Hello and welcome
To this presentation on the final project we did for course CSCI
as a mechanism
63 Big Data Analytics 2014 in Hadoop extension Sqoop. The topic of the project was Sqoop, a mechanism for transferring data to and from the Hadoop database
extension Sqoop.
data file system. So in this slide we show what was the scope of the project. First we show the various resources we used and the software we installed to get this kind of software we had to install. The scope basically included importing data from SQL Server to Hadoop and exporting the data back from Hadoop to SQL Server to Hadoop, and importing data from SQL Server to Hive,
importing data from SQL Server
and exporting data back from Hive to
SQL Server,
and finally importing the data from SQL Server to HBase. The resources that were used were Windows 7 platform, 64-bit OS, MapReduce version 1
installed in Linux
VM,
SQL Server
CentOS
2012
Linux
database instance created
and a SQL Server Express 2012 database instance created in Amazon Web Services using their
and the
RDS
SQL
service.
Server Management Studio, the client application to
And a look
connect
on
to
the SQL
DB
Server
instance
Management
in AWS.
Studio installed in the
and
client
a
PC
third-party
to
tool,
connect to the
a
DB
SQL data
instance,
generator from requried
and a third-party tool SQL data generator from requried software
Linux VM
to create the test data.
Hive, HBase, and HBase.
And the software therefore installed
and
in
here are the variables that we
MapReduce
set
Linux
to
VM
ensure that
were Sqoop,
there's
Hive, HBase,
Java,
HBase
Hadoop,
Master,
and Hadoop can
and they were
find
all
Java
installed
and
using
so
the
on and
yum
so forth,
command.
and Hive can find Java and Hadoop and so on and so forth.
I also set the environment variables so that the commands can be issued
Additionally, we had
from anywhere in the
installed
VM.
the SQL Server JDBC driver in the Linux VM, and
I also
we chose
installed the
SQL Server 2012
SQL
Express in
Server
AWS.
JDBC driver in the MapReduce
and we
Linux
chose
VM.
for the SQL
And I
Server
chose
driver,
this particular file, tar file, this compressed tar file,
GZ extension, and
selected SQL Server 2012 Express in
edition.
Amazon Web Services. After we launch the DB instance using
slot, which is a very straightforward
a launch wizard,
which is
pretty much straightforward
wizard.
We wait
till
the instance from the state of being created to the state of being available.
And when that happens, we note
you have to wait for a while
here
to get
the
the
server
state.
where the instance is rising.
What this is showing
and
is
where
the
it's in
detail of the
authorized, it means that
DB instance once this has been
external
in a state
access,
of available.
remote access to this and
I chose like a 20
this instance
gigabyte
is
storage, which is more than enough. This is the minimum I had to choose.
which was the VPC
The
default.
security groups I chose were default active, and anything else I found out that I was not able to connect to the DB instance.
So in the SQL Server, first we create two
And the
test tables.
instance
The
class I
employee
chose
table and
micro
student table.
to
The
keep
two
the
tables
cost
have
minimal.
only three columns. The employee table
And one
has
thing we have
their
to note here is the
ID, their
endpoint
name, and the hiring date.
data
and the
that is
student
here,
table
which
will
is
have
showing the
their
MySQL server,
first name, second name, and their
which is the name of the DB instance that I created, and the name of the server where the DB instance is running,
tool, the code generator,
and the port
data
number,
generator,
and it's indicating authorized, meaning
pick up the two
the
tables.
DB instance will allow remote connection.
and ask him to create 1,000 records, test records. Once you click
So first we create
the sample record
test
and then
tables,
go to another
namely
step.
employee
You have to
table and
confirm.
student table and
When you
SQL
click
data
that generator
using
in
the
dialog box, it will create the
SQL
test data.
Server Management
And we
Studio.
do that for both the tables, and both the
These
tables
are
will have 1,000
fairly
records
straightforward
each.
tables having only 3 columns. The employee table
So we're not going
has
to take
the
those
employee
1,000
ID,
records and start
the name, and the
importing,
hiring
exporting
date of the
between
employee table.
Hadoop systems
employees.
and the SQL Server.
And the student table has
So first we do an
the first
import
name, last name,
from SQL
and
Server
the
to Hadoop,
graduation year.
and we use this command. Sqoop
Once the tables are created, I connect it to the DB
connect
instance
attribute,
using the SQL data
and we say
generator
what the connect string
tool,
is, which is the JDBC
and it's giving the same connect
driver.
string.
And
And
here
it picked
is
up
the
those
name
two
of the
tables that I just created.
instant MySQL server that I created.
And it also
in
created
AWS.
some sample
And
data for
here
me
is
to
the
see.
server where the instance is running, and this
So
is
I had to set up all these
the
parameters
username,
here.
the password.
It gives the default
the
value of
database with
1000. I
our
kept it that
Test
1000.
table is sitting is the T-SQL.
And I clicked on the generate data.
And here's the name
And then
of
it
the
asks
table
for
that we
confirmation.
created.
Once it's confirmed,
And here's the directory
it picks
for
up.
target
It
directory.
asks for confirmation whether to create data for both tables. And
Issue
that's
the
a yes.
command in the
So it
Linux
creates
VM,
test data for both the employee table and the student table,
and it goes
which
to the MapReduce cycle
I used in the rest of the
and shows that
exercise.
it's retrieved 1,000 records.
So the first
We look
exercise
at
is to
the first
import
10
data from
records here,
SQL Server
and
to
we
Hadoop.
see the employee names
And the command that was used was
their
Sqoop
IDs are
import.
given on the left column.
So we have to give
their names, and these are
the
the
string using the connect attribute. And the string is the JDBC driver,
data back to SQL Server from
the name of the instance,
so we
and the
use
name of the server.
Sqoop export command.
Exactly what
The same
we
connect
saw
string we're going to use.
in that
This time we're going to say
area where it says
and export
point.
directory as the employee info.
Just copy and paste it over
We
here.
just
We
issue
give the
command.
username
Everything goes fine. If
and
we go
the
to
password,
MapReduce cycle,
the username,
showing
the
1,000
password
records
for
have
the
been
instance, and the database that I picked up from the SQL Server,
we
where I
import data from
created
SQL
the
Server
table,
to Hive.
employee table,
We
and
use
then
the same
I
Sqoop
named
import
a
command.
target directory file in Hadoop,
Connect
which is
strings remains the same.
employee info.
The employee table is the employee table.
So
And
once
we do
I
a
issued the
Hive
command,
import and a Hive table,
it went through MapReduce cycle
We're going to do an append of the
and
records,
created
which will also do override.
1,000
And the field
records,
will be
basically
terminated
imported
by
from
that
SQL Server,
But before
and
that,
wanted
check
to see
in
first 10
Hive
records
whether
of
there
what it
are
looks
any
like.
changes.
And it shows that it
We
has the
type
employee in the
Hive
first
in
column, the name of the employees, and the
VM,
hiring
get to
date.
this Hive prompt. We issue show tables. We find
Next, we're going to export the data back to SQL Server from Hadoop.
and once that Sqoop
We
import
issued the Sqoop
command
export
is issued,
command this time.
it goes to
The
the
connect
MapReduce
string is the
cycle,
same.
and it shows that
The name of the
Hive is
table
import completed.
to be exported to is the M table,
So
and
we
data to
verify
be
the data
exported
transfer from SQL
in
Server to
Hadoop
Hive.
is the export directory
sudo
employee
hive.
info. So once
It
they
takes
issued
it
the
to Hive
command,
prompt, and we issue show tables command.
it went
And
through
we see
the
that
MapReduce cycle,
data file
and it showed it
employee
exported
info has been
1,000
created.
records to SQL Server.
And we do a
Next, we import data from SQL Server to Hive.
and it shows that as the first name, last name, and
We
hire
use this
date,
import
exactly
command,
what we created
the same
in
connect
SQL Server
string,
database,
no change.
and we do
The
a
table
select
is the same.
of the records. We see how many
We just
records
do a
have been
Hive
transferred
import,
to a select
a Hive
from
table, I
It
call it
shows
employee info,
that is created,
and the
1,000
attribute is append,
imported
could also be
1,000
overwrite. And fields terminated by
Now we're
tab.
going to export the employee info data back from Hive to SQL
First, we
Server.
check to see whether there are any
Again, we
tables
use the
called
export
employee
command.
table in Hive.
Same
So we go to the
connect
Hive
string.
prompt by typing just simply sudo
Same
Hive,
table.
and it will
The
in
only
Linux
change
it will
is
take it to Hive
path
prompt,
here.
and we show
Export path
tables.
So we
And
have to
there
find
we see
out
nothing
when the
there.
data is stored in Hive, and it is in the user.
And then we
Hive
issue the Sqoop import
warehouse,
command,
and we have given this
and we get to see
path
the Hive
in the
import is
environment
completed
variables
successfully.
earlier. So Hive is able
Next,
to
we
find
check
out
to see whether the data has been
the
transferred to Hive from
employee
SQL Server.
file, and the
So we, from the
field
Linux, we
determinant
issue
is separated
Hive,
by
sudo Hive,
tab character,
and it takes us to, and you
So
can
we
see
issue the
that we need
command.
sudo to get into Hive because of
and it goes to the
restrictions,
MapReduce cycle
access
again.
permission,
It shows that
and
it's exported.
that gave us some
1,000
issues. We had to
records
deal
back
with some
SQL
issues on
Server.
access to
So
Hive
let's
file
check it.
systems.
We go to SQL Server and we find 1,000 records have been.
So it gives us the Hive
exported
prompt,
to
and we
SQL
do
Server.
show tables, and it now is showing the emp info.
Okay, this time we're going to import data
file
from
there.
SQL Server to HBase.
And we wanted to see the structure
We will
of the
now use
file.
the
It
second
has
table,
the
student
same
table.
structure, employee
Before
ID,
we verify there are no
first name,
employee
last
tables
name,
in
and hiring
HBase,
date, and so on.
and that there are
Just the
1,000
way
records in
we
the
create
SQL Server. So we do HBase shell command. It takes it to the prompt.
And it took about
HBase prompt. We issue
78
list,
seconds to do this.
which is
to
table
get to the
zero, nothing, no rows in the table.
And then when we find out how many records it
And
has,
we go back to SQL Server and we verify
imported.
that there are 1,000
and it
records
shows that it
available.
has imported 1,000 records.
We issue the import command again.
Now
Same
we export
connect
the
string.
employee information
Student table
data
this
back
time.
from Hive
And
to
this time
SQL
we
Server.
say HBase table, student info, and we say it's a
So we use
column
this
family
export command
starting
using
with
the
student
same
ID
connect string
to pick up all
with the employee table
columns in
and the
the
export
table.
directory. This
And we have
time,
to issue a create table.
when it comes to
table has to be
Hive, we have to
This was
issue
not
the
the case
path
for the Hive.
where the employee information folder is.
And we're going to go back to the shell,
And this is
we will list
the user
and we
Hive
count the number of
warehouse.
records.
We had
and
to
examine
find
what's
this out,
inside.
and I have the student info file included that in the environment variable,
Here
so
it
that
is. We issued it.
Sqoop can find this path.
We ran through the MapReduce
And the
cycle.
input fields are terminated by tab character.
1,000 records.
We issue the command,
We
go to the
we went to the
MapReduce
HBase
cycles,
command.
and it shows that it
shell,
exported 1,000 records.
and we
Back
got a
to
list
SQL
command. It shows there's the table student info.
So now we check to see
We do a count on the student info.
the data
and
from
it's
Hive to
showing
SQL
1,000
Server, and it
records.
shows that it
And then
has
we issued a scan command on the
1,000 records
student
sitting in
info
SQL Server.
to see what's there.
Next, we import data from SQL Server to HBase.
Just see example 9.
This time we're going to use the student table that we created earlier.
Sylvester 23.
And we ensure that there is no end label in HBase, and there are indeed 1,000 records in SQL Server.
This brings to the conclusion of this
So what do? We go to Linux and issue HBase shell command, and it brings it to HBase prompt. We do a list command, and we see the table has 0 rows. And we go back, check the SSMS, the SQL Server Management Studio, and we see that SQL has only 1,000 records sitting there, which is good. So we now issue the import command from student table data from SQL Server to student info in HBase. We use the Sqoop import command. The same connect string, nothing changed. The same, the student table is a different table now. We have to identify HBase table. Student info is where the data will be saved or exported to. And the column family will start with student ID, and the rest of the columns will be picked up because of the column family. And we have to create an HBase create table attribute, which we didn't have to use in the case for Hive. And then we get into this HBase shell, we are listing, we count the records, and we examine some sample data. So here we issued the command, and what we see that it has retrieved 1,000 records, going to the MapReduce cycles. We go to the HBase shell, and we are in the HBase prompt. We issue a list, we see the table, student info is there, and 1,000 records have been imported. And we examine some data. We see that the student info data files that picked up, collected the data student records with ID 995. Here's the student and her year of graduation. This brings conclusion of this presentation. I hope you have found this thing interesting. Thank you.